Yeah, finally we are on air. Dear all, we are on Digital Week online, and let's greet our distinguished speaker today. Welcome, Mamadou Toure, pioneer and global thought leader. He founded Africa 2.0, an action-oriented think tank gathering a community of young leaders from Africa and the global diaspora. He is the founder of Ubuntu Group and in particular Ubuntu Tribe. Ubuntu Tribe is an international fintech company whose mission is to interconnect and empower individuals and communities by sustainably harnessing and natural resources of the earth. Ubuntu Tribe aims to create shared abundance toward a more conscious, caring, and prosperous world. The company provides a decentralized digital ecosystem powered by ethical gold-backed tokens. It's a social commerce platform where communities can thrive and co-create a better world inspired by the Ubuntu philosophy, I am because we are. Thanks. So it disruptive model, thanks to its disruptive model providing both financial and social returns. Ubuntu Tribe signed with Smart Africa Alliance, an initiative by 31 African heads of states mandated to drive and accelerate Africa's leapfrog into digital economy. The collaboration positioned Ubuntu Tribe as preferred digital currency to be rolled out in 31 member countries. The GV will help address financial inclusion by offering the 800 million unbanked to access the global economy by transacting gold-backed coins directly from their mobile phones. The company has already secured significant resources of gold across Africa and is ready to democratize access to gold in Africa and around the world by providing digital gold from less than $5 available anytime, anywhere, to anyone, thanks to blockchain technology. Ubuntu Tribe has finalists in the category Innovation in Banking at the African Bankers Award. Mamadou was ranked by Forbes as one of the top 10 most influential people in Africa, top 30 most influential people in the world in blockchain. As a young leader, he, with World Economic Forum, completed the program as public policy and global leadership for 21st century at Harvard Kennedy School. Finally, Mamadou will discuss today about how can blockchain and artificial intelligence help improve the current global economic order and pave the way for a more conscious, caring, and prosperous world. You are welcome. Word is yours.
Thank you very much, Sergey. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here tonight with the audience and to discuss this very important topic. So indeed, when we talk about a conscious, caring, a more conscious, caring, and prosperous world, it's important to also look at some of the key dynamics, right? So we're talking today about 3 billion people living below, living with less than $3 a day. We're talking also about an issue with financial inclusion. If you take the case in Africa, for instance, 700 million people don't have access to a bank account, and if you look at global scale, it's probably 3 times the number. So there's a problem indeed in terms of getting people into the global economy. But beyond that, it's not just an issue of the poor people. In more developed countries, the level of debt is the highest ever recorded. And if you take, for instance, the case of the United States, the millennials today have accumulated, are sitting on more than $1 trillion of debt, which is the biggest kind of indebtedness ever recorded by a generation in the United States. So you have 2 major issues, which are, first, indeed, financial inclusion, but also the question of wealth creation and preservation that is hitting the planet. So there's a strong need to kind of look at things differently. That's why we've created Ubuntu. And as you mentioned, Ubuntu refers to I am because we are. And it basically calls upon our shared humanity and the importance of the collective in order to value the individual and vice versa. Um, when we look at the evolution of technology, today we're talking about the role of blockchain and artificial intelligence in improving the current economic order to lead to such a better world. Let's call it New Earth if we can, right? So it's a big task, but those two elements will play a major role. One thing actually that you mentioned, indeed, Africa 2.0, another initiative that we've launched, which is quite essential in those times of COVID-19, is the Ubuntu Love Challenge, right? So as you know, today the world is challenged by a global pandemic, reminding us of our interdependence and fragility as a human species. Let's not forget that we are one, and it's time to go back to our shared humanity, our Ubuntu, so that we can create this new world. So as we're looking at making the world better, it will imply also to remind ourselves what are the very fundamentals and why we're doing that. So that's why we launched the Ubuntu Love Challenge, but I'll come back to it later and you'll see that there's a method to the madness. So basically, at this point, we've launched a Ubuntu Love Challenge with Sheikh Abdul Al-Qasimi, and we're challenging you and change makers around the world to also take this challenge and take an act of kindness and solidarity with one another. So when we, why is it important to understand the relationship between the fact that we're all interdependent and need to work together and blockchain? Basically, blockchain is a technology allowing to lower uncertainty and expand our ability to trade through a decentralized validation system. And what is interesting actually is that as humans, we've been using blockchain without even realizing it. So, and it was just the kind of, I would say, with those algorithm and cryptography, it was the interpretation of basically of human behavior that has been going for a longest time. And within the Ubuntu philosophy, for instance, in Africa, when a child would be born, or when you would want to validate your land, we didn't have, city hall or any kind of central entity or person trusted to kind of validate this reality. So we would call the elders, 4 or 5 elders, to basically agree that this is my land, right? So in case somebody or one of the elders would not be there or traveling, etc., then you would still have the others to validate. That's how blockchain works, right? So you rely on a collective of nodes to validate either a transaction or an actual fact, etc. So, and it has allowed to do it without referring to a central party. And this has been a major shift because it also leads to a shift of power in terms of trust environment. Now, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is, in my opinion, the emulating and outperforming of a machine to process the cognitive and analytics tasks of a human brain. So in more technical terms, so those are architectures that deploy methods enabled by constraints exposed by representation that supports models of thinking, perceptions, and actions. So what is so specific about blockchain and AI? First, blockchain is actually deterministic. You can be certain that something has happened, and this is very essential in this new economy because if you look at the Bitcoin history, the whole point was to say, and as it started in 2008 during the global financial crisis, there was a growing mistrust, if I may, within the banking sector. When Satoshi Nakamoto and let's say the collective, if I can call it this way, came with the whole cryptography, was to how do we rely more on the community than on a central entity? And this resonated with me because it reminded me of Ubuntu per se. So blockchain is actually deterministic. You validate something. AI is probabilistic. Why? Because you leverage on a set of data that help you predict the future or anticipate certain needs, etc., or react to a certain reality or context around you. And what is also interesting about it is that both rely on a collective of machine or people to either validate or input the data. Oh, did I hear collective? Okay, it means that people can still be in control, and I'll come back to that also. So what if we combine both? We do already have, and it's happening in a very powerful tool that could really transform the world we live in, and really help, if it's done properly, alleviate some of the challenges that we're facing. So within the context of the using those two technologies to transform the economy, let's kind of look at what we mean by economy, right? So economy basically comes from the Greek oikos and nomos, which is oikos means house, nomos means laws, so the laws of the house. So it doesn't necessarily refer to wealth initially, and it has ultimately referred to it, especially a few centuries ago when currency was introduced. So it's also interesting, to kind of, I mean, currency the way we know it today, right, with banks, etc. It's also very interesting to understand the word currency. Currency comes from current, and then you have banks. So banks, in etymologically, basically divert the current or drive the current. So very, very interesting, the power of words here. Now, we're entering the fourth industrial revolution, right? Mostly driven by technology. And one would naturally think, right, that the current situation might stay the same because it will be driven, it could, should, let's see if it will happen, driven by indeed money per se. But now the reality is that if you look at how industrial revolutions have happened in the past, and it's important to put all this context if we want to talk about economic order and the future in particular, you generally have a few key factors that trigger or ignite the industrial revolutions, right? So that one would be linked to communications, the second one would be linked to transport, and the third one would be linked to energy. So you need the convergence of those three key factors to effectively ignite. So, the first industrial revolution, or even we can look at the second, right? So the first one, they introduced printing, right? And then people could effectively communicate and so on. And then you had coal as a steam, sorry, that came in and that started powering machines, etc. And it also helped people move. Now, if you look at the second industrial revolution, you had in the telecommunication space the telegraph. You had also the locomotive, right? From a transport point of view, and introduction of oil. Now, on the 21st century, we're entering into the new form of telecommunications. Some that could have some impact, of course, with internet, right? And we're also entering with renewable energy a whole different mode of consumption and distribution of energy and way to power. In hydrogen also coming very strong. So in what context AI and blockchain can affect those economies now? I would say that basically you do have what people would call 8 forms of capital. Traditionally, those 8 forms of capital would be financial capital, which is the one everybody knows, and that would say rules everything in people's mindset. But you also have material capital, right? So do you have a laptop? Do you have a house? Do you have a building or a car? You have um, um, you also have the experiential capital, intellectual capital, spiritual capital, social capital, living capital. Now, within those 8 forms, there are 2 that have been highly underestimated, and where blockchain and AI actually will impact significantly, that can transform everything. And those 2 are human capital and data capital. And they will become the most important forms of capital that will redistribute the cards in terms of creating new forms of wealth. Let me explain. So social capital. Social capital is basically, your network, your influence, etc. So the first one to actually leverage on social capital were the likes of Facebook. They understood the power of social capital, and they generated, a lot of return for their shareholders, leveraging on your needs to build your social capital, whether it be emotionally social or business social capital. And then you have the likes of Twitter, LinkedIn, and so on. Now, material capital, where it's interesting there is that they've used AI in a very strong and powerful way to be able to fine-tune your need as a user and monetize it for the shareholders. And we'll come back to that in terms of data, etc. But that's the power of AI, which means you might want to be friend with that person, and so on. So AI is already transforming our lives here, and create capital, basically, or financial capital, leveraging on another form of capital that was not valued before. The other one that everybody knows is, of course, material capital. So that's where both blockchain and AI actually play a big role. So in the case of, most developed economies measure, the material capital plays a very important thing. So now, AI helps in the context where you measure your wealth based on what you have. Then it's important to also understand the value chain and so on. So where it becomes very interesting is, if you look at AI, it helps you drive your business in 3 ways. So you can use it to reduce your cost, which is optimization. You can use it also to address your customer need by having a focus on the different customers, right? So instead of having one size fits all product, you have different kind of products that are designed, and then you can also differentiate yourself through that. So with in the case of material capital, it becomes also interesting to see blockchain and AI, especially in the supply chain, that actually lead to the manufacturing of this capital. So how can that affect some economies? So let's say, for instance, you take the case of Cote d'Ivoire, right? Who's the largest producer of cocoa, right? So in this case, you would use and people have especially in the development world, have a greater need to get quality product, or either organic or clean. And as you know, want to make sure also that the iPhones that are manufactured have, let's say, materials or clean mining, where you don't have child labor, etc. How do you ensure that this actually happens? But that's where you leverage on blockchain, right? So basically you can have full traceability of the product, you know, all the way to the customer, and customers are willing to pay more for that. Now, where it becomes interesting is that because they're willing to pay more and because the supply chain is transparent, then you would know also how much the person in the mine is producing the coltan for, and how much you know, the logistics cost. So with this greater transparency, it would also lead to a greater need for a better distribution of the wealth across the value chain. And blockchain also help eliminate the intermediary, right? And that's where material capital and the wealth distributed along that value chain and supply chain could be reorganized in a better benefit of emerging countries or developing economy. Why? Because it's transparent. And how do you get to transparency? So, and the main question in particular with blockchain is to say, okay, but how do I trust that let's say at the before the cocoa gets to the port, it is the right cocoa, and it has been done in the right conditions, etc., or it's produced or transported. So that's where you rely again on community, on what I call the Ubuntu. So
may I have a question, please?
yeah,
For me, it's very sensitive topic. You know, the people, the source is coming on blockchain, also right on blockchain, coming from the people, from the crowd, from the humanity as is. And now how do we can believe that records in that blockchain also not
thank you,
gonna be the fake? It's
thank you.
the source, is the first source that
Yeah,
humans are the fake or humans are the non-trusted. Not blockchain can be
that's
much more auditable, much more transparent
it's a
for us.
look. Thank you for this question, because this is the very essence, and that's
Yeah,
where we call people. That's why the principle of Ubuntu is critical. Why? Indeed, how do you trust that the guy is going to tell the truth, right, along that supply chain? But that's why you go back to the principle of humanity and to the very principle of blockchain, where you use a collective of people that could serve as nodes. So basically, let's say at each checkpoint, you have basically a collective of people who have a digital identity, who are supposed to validate the accuracy, comprehensiveness, etc. of the product. Each of them then have to reach a consensus and say, okay, there is this amount of product of this particular quality, right? Then instead of trusting one person, and there's so many people that are jobless, let's say in villages, for instance. So you can remunerate them with coins or with tokens for doing that particular verification job, right? And the point is, how do you ensure that they'll tell the truth collectively? That's where consensus come in. But that's where also reputation on blockchain comes in. It means that if at the next checkpoint you have a different assessment of, and you create a pool of validators that you pick from, but that are different in different times, so that from one checkpoint to another, if there's been a difference in validation of that information, then you go back to the previous checkpoint, right? And you can basically ban all the people or rate them with a red card if you want, or with a point system, who lied to it. And now the beauty is, because everybody is at the risk of losing the job because of someone lied, then you have what you call the peer pressure. So you can use the human blockchain on your supply chain, right? And that would be the starting point until you have a reliable technology that can actually validate the accuracy and quality of that product based on its digital identity. Now, if you do that a series of time and then they get remunerated every time there's a flow, then they can accumulate a bit of resources first to kind of go and get online education, right? Because it's digital. So suddenly, even if they don't have a credit card, they can now register online because they receive tokens. And then second thing, because they work as a community, they also have a pool and a collective wallet, potentially to buy the machine once they've had this series of And that's why, and that's how we've looked at it from an Ubuntu point of view, even with the gold itself we're sourcing from rural communities and artisanal miners. So we're looking at deploying that kind of system because we just went back to the very essence of humans. If you don't trust a central entity, trust the community and make the community responsible. That's how blockchain works.
Yes, person responsibility you are going to create via communities consensus. Now I see. Now I got your point. It's very interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting stuff. Yeah.
And that's why also suddenly, not only you create jobs, right, but you create a better trusted supply chain and some also access to digital with payment in digital currencies. Then you also give access to those people to the global economy, right? So suddenly I don't have a credit card, right? And nobody wants my local currency. If I give you my CFA or my Ghana CD, you're gonna say, what can I do with that if I want to get an online course? But because I have a digital currency, suddenly I'm on the same level playing field with any person on the planet to get access to knowledge, knowing that the future is about knowledge-based economy, yeah? So that was the case of material capital and supply chain as an example, right? Now, if you look the other element and which is a perfect segue is intellectual capital in the its form of capital. Guess what? Now, if I can get a digital currency, if I get paid with it, then I can get education, as I mentioned. But now also, and especially that we're going to a world where upskilling, reskilling will become the new norm. Now, I can now also validate degrees through those blockchain, right? So even if you can't go to Harvard, you potentially can do it online, right? If people don't trust your degree back where you are because you don't come from those European Ivy League school, but you can put your degree on a blockchain and it has some value, then we know you really got this degree. So there's no longer this two-tier society where, if you didn't, where you get discriminated for either your wealth at birth or your place at birth. And that's where blockchain also start bringing a level playing field. So the intellectual capital could better be redistributed through those models with micro degrees certified and so on, right? So, and let's take an example, for instance, right? So COVID-19, what was very interesting in the case of Africa is that Madagascar came with an organic treatment and they struggled a bit to get it approved, first by Europe, and which have posed a few problems. And I think recently, luckily, WHO approved it. But now, guess what? So if it wasn't the president of Madagascar who had claimed to the world that, yes, we have something that is organic. And by the way, though most of Africa has been dealing with organic treatment for a lot of their issues, like malaria, we treat it with Artemisia, and it works. But that's another topic. But now, guess what? Ancestral knowledge gets on the blockchain. It means that you don't necessarily have to put, billions of dollars into something to be recognized, right? It means that if you have an ancestral knowledge, wherever you are, whether you're in Amazon forest or in the middle of somewhere in Africa or in Asia, that also China has a lot of very good traditional medicine. Suddenly, from wherever I am, I can use the blockchain and put my intellectual property on it. It's validated, it's proven, and it's there. It's immutable. Suddenly, this wealth, which is intellectual capital, gets redefined and gets redistributed, and you can get it monetized. Now, if you put on top of it AI, where you can start comparing with other medicines having the right data in terms of efficiency, then you have immutable info and you have capacity to compare different products and no longer the one voice knows it all. So that's also another shift that could happen. The other one is the experiential capital.
I want to have a question. I want to ask you something. When you're talking about monetizing the not information, monetizing the human capital. You have
Intellectual capital. Human
intellectual. Yes, yes,
capital,
I'm sorry.
I'll
I
come to it
come out
later.
from my mind. Yeah, intellectual capital. How do you see monetization? Because when we are monetized, our intellect is just provide service or provide any kind of product or provide any kind of, I don't know, knowledge. How do you think that that kind of monetization can come out in this situation?
Thanks. Yeah. So in our case, Ubuntu Coin, we have, which is we have two tokens, right? Godel, that is gold backed, and UBX, that is a tokenized convertible warrant. The reason why we chose gold as to back our digital asset was, in the case of Africa, we produce, or we have 40% of the global gold reserves, right?
Wow.
But our currencies, nobody wants it. But our gold, everybody wants it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
our gold a currency, right? And let's go digital. Why? Because even if people don't have a mobile, even people don't have a bank account, 80% of them, 87% of adults have a mobile phone. So let's put digital gold on their mobile phone. So suddenly they have access to the global economy. And now you can digitize.
Yes, actually, for me, you don't need money. I think that Africa don't need money. These developing countries need just phones, and that's it. They already have everything on it.
That's the whole point, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why a lot of the big tech firms are rushing. I mean, I'm sure you heard the CEO of Twitter
Yeah.
um, mentioning that he was thinking of relocating in Africa, and that the future of digital currency was there, right after his trip. Yes, indeed. Once you have a mobile phone, and that's the beauty of being capable of leapfrogging, and that's also the beauty of technology, right? So and that's why we said, what has value globally? Gold, across all civilizations in human history and across all geographies, have always been valued. Now, even if today our currencies, our paper currencies is not, our underground is, which leads me now to what I want to call the natural capital, right? So you can turn today, with technology and blockchain in particular, natural capital into a currency, right? And that's a major game changer. And when I say natural currency, it's not just gold, right? It could be timber, it could be, platinum, and it could be water.
Yes, right? Yes, you are completely right. Water on earth. Yes.
Exactly, right? And guess what? That's something that everybody needs. So
yes.
You can start
every
talking
human, yeah,
and making it a currency in a context where you have climate change and where you have a lot of polluted rivers, etc. Water is going to become a very precious currency. Not just for that, because with water, you can now also get another natural capital, which is hydrogen.
Yes, yes.
Associated
Mamadou, because we're now we're nearly streaming online. We have a question, just one of it, please. Sure. I can ask it. One of the viewers asked, if you feel in his area being the leader of opinion of the crypto, is it safe to be as is it safe for you being there, and what do you think about digital identity?
If I am what is safe?
If I'm talking in sorry for my English.
No, it's okay. I mean, you can speak Russian. I can't. So
no. I'm sorry. Yeah. Please ask him if he feels safe in his area, being the leader of opinion of the crypto and digital identity.
Okay. Very simple. The question of safety around that, I've been confronted to it. So, Victor Hugo, who is a French author, used to say, nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. Yeah.
This question is from Israel. Yeah, actually. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So, yeah, look, at the end of the day, the question of safety is, once I've said it, right? Even if I'm not there, the idea is out. So what matters here is, for me, it's to change the world. So if the idea is out, there'll be hundreds, thousands, others who explore the idea. It's too late.
Yeah, yeah.
Next.
You're completely right. I want to let you continue your ideology because I'm sorry for interruption because questions are coming and coming and I can't wait. I have to ask you.
Yeah, and look, I think what is also important here, right, is and I'll come back to that question of safety. So we need to understand where the world is going here. Yeah. So I mean, just with COVID-19, I don't know how many trillions have been printed. Yeah. So
yeah,
we also, as a result of COVID-19, there's going to be a major I mean, it has started, right? So 30 million jobs lost in the US, 1 out of 6 British that lives on with government support. So the global economy is for sure going to go through a depression, leading up, and now with also the issue of supply chains being disrupted, right? You're dealing with a potential issue of shortage that would trigger inflation, and therefore down the road also with the combination of all that, hyperinflation. Hyperinflation leads to what? A challenge with money. Now, when you look at where the world is going today, if we're going, you can't even use paper anymore to your notes, your bills, because there's a risk with Corona, right? So the world is going digital anyway. So the question is, how do you make sure that the direction that is taken benefits everyone?
no way. I think no way.
Right? So, the point is at least we have to try. So, and the reality is also that, look, if you take the case of China, right? They've already moving ahead with the blockchain, right? And
China not going to the blockchain way. They are printing their own crypto yuan and that's it. And it's centralized.
exactly. So where is the safety here? It's already there. And, and I know the US also have been thinking about, a digital dollar, and they've been very open about it.
And Europe thinking about CDBC, central
exactly.
bank.
So
yeah.
So it's already out there, right? Now the key question is, I'll say this, and even in the case of China, that I understand that it will be partially backed by gold, that crypto, that currency that they're putting together, right? And if you take the case of who were the largest buyers of gold over the last decade in the world, India, Russia, China. So there's something there. So national, and if you look also at history, right? So since 1971 with Nixon and the decoupling of the dollar to the gold, when crisis hit, people will go back to what they know. And what was decently working, and it might, even if it's going to be an intermediary solution, is to, in times of crisis, people go to gold.
Okay, I see. I have a question about Ubuntu. I
Yes.
am as geek, very interesting, and I'm fond of the Ubuntu application, of the Ubuntu operating system. Is it somehow concerns too, or is just another kind of ideology?
No, it's the same, and that's why they're using Ubuntu. So Ubuntu really is a philosophy, and it's an African philosophy that means I am because we are. And if you look at this operating system, at the end of the day, what does it say? It's open source. It means that whatever is going to be built is built by the collective. I only exist as a contributor thanks to the other contributors. And our company is based on the same model, which is let's democratize access to gold. And even the model of ownership, whomever owns the token can become a shareholder. So we're not a nation. So we're not here to do geopolitics. We're here to empower the people to get a decent standard of living, and hopefully embracing that philosophy to build a better world together.
Actually, I have a next question for you. Maybe is a little bit off topic, but when we are starting talking about communities, now we see that raise up a lot of DAOs, decentralized autonomic organization, which are going to be somehow not organization as we can see. It's going to new kind of digital organization which appears online. What do you think in that way? How it appears maybe in Africa, or what's your perspective on that way? I want to just hear you.
Yeah, I mean, this is interesting, and it brings me back also to the question of being a thought leader. First, I think what is nice about blockchain is that even those thought leaders are decentralized themselves, right? So the ideas from around the world, and people are building so many powerful applications today. They're interconnected and they're not, but something very strong is coming out of it. Now, what is important from a DAO, distributed autonomous organization, is to understand the link with AI and blockchain again. So in this current context, I would say if you take a Uber, for instance, right, or an Airbnb, it's highly powered by artificial intelligence, right? But it's still very much centralized with a central software that optimizes whatever needs are, right? And serve the ultimate customer and use either the driver, etc. Now, what it becomes very interesting is why can't you build actually communities of homeowners or communities of car owners that actually use AI and build a community as a decentralized autonomous organization to serve a community? And let's take the case of a Walmart versus small shops, right? So if you put 2,000 small shops in an area that work together as a collective using blockchain to validate the inventories, right? And AI to optimize the needs and the demand, now the wealth is redistributed differently, equitably, in a way that benefits those small entrepreneurs, but also the end user. And that's critical, but it leads to the other question of you need to decentralize AI.
What do you mean? What do you think? I don't know why, but people around, crowd is very scared of the power of the AI coming every day appears. And when it's gonna be decentralized, we can maybe lose that control on that, I don't know, very huge power of artificial intelligence around the globe. What do we do and how we can interact with it?
So
maybe your ideas, we haven't any choices, or we haven't any.
No, but look, I think look at the case of AI today. So the thing as it is that it requires enormous computing power, right? I mean, blockchain is decentralized, but the AI today is very much, at least the largest AI capacities are
we are extremely close to appearing quantum computers. We are extremely close to that extra power. Yeah.
Okay, so no, we're not close. It does exist, but it's just staying for now at nation states level. Okay. We're not close. It's there. But the question of AI today is that, you know, the big companies like Google, etc., Google, Facebook, have the largest AI budget, but also the largest AI capacity, right? And where it becomes very interesting is that that's what allows them to be able to profile you, to address your need, to build. I mean, same for Amazon, the FANG, basically, to be able to serve your needs and anticipate them, right? So where it becomes interesting is that we are all willing and contributing to provide the data, because without data and without big data, there's no AI. So this leads to the question of data sovereignty.
You know, but we haven't
And
any answers.
and when you look ultimately from a community point of view, once again,
Yeah.
data sovereignty, and that's why our platform actually, the data remains the ownership of the user, and they can monetize their data, which was the point I was coming to when I mentioned the 8 forms of capital. The biggest form of capital tomorrow, and actually today, and more tomorrow, is data. Now, what does that mean? It means that ultimately, AI helps predict the future or helps anticipate your need. But to do that, and if you look at facial recognition, for instance, using deep learning, it needs so much data to be able to get to where they are. But now, what about the users starting monetizing their data? What about with the concept of data ownership? Then it leads to a whole new economy. You know why? Because if you take in 2050, right, you will have roughly 2 billion Africans. And what does that mean if you assume data ownership? It means that it's a numbers game. And it means that as an individual, you can now monetize your data, who you are, and then you can get passive revenues from it. That's a game changer, but it will change the whole nature of the economy. But that's where also the decentralized autonomous organization can actually enable that. And that's also the point of a neural network. The neural network itself is what led to deep learning, but the planet is a neural network of human beings, of brains. Hopefully.
Yeah. You know,
So
I want to make your attention to look on that on another perspective. You're right. You're completely right when you're saying that our own data has to have value. But when this value comes to the corporates, they are able to sell it and monetize it, and they are know who's the buyer. But when it's comes to up to us, we don't know who needs it and we can't sell it. That's why it's has no valuable thing for the people around or for the community or something else. That's why we are have this this technology that only huge companies like Facebook, like Apple, or like Microsoft able to sell our data and make money from it, but we can't. We only have
yeah, no, I mean,
willing to sell it.
that's not true. That's not true. So let's go back to a distributed autonomous organization, yeah?
Okay.
So let's take the city where I am now, Sharjah in the UAE, right?
Mhm.
So basically, there's so many small shops and entrepreneurs who have, whose livelihood depends on what they're selling, right? Now, if they could load on a DAO on a let's say local server, right? What inventory they have in terms of whatever it's food or clothes, etc. And then they create this virtual supermarket that collects their data, right? And if I, as a consumer, right, would put some of my data, not all of it, and I remember data sovereignty, right? I put some of it into a decentralized platform on the blockchain, which means that we're looking at the immutability and accuracy, etc., of the data. Now, with an AI thing, then you can connect.
Perfect case,
Not
really
sure
perfect
I
case.
need to go all the way to Palo Alto to
Yeah,
connect
yeah.
my neighbor, do I?
I clearly understand what you mean. Is the perfect case to matching the data to each other and find the value in the right place.
Exactly.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
And let's say I want to profile myself as somebody who likes technology and knows a bit of finance and history, for instance, right? So those are the data that I'm willing to put on the cloud. That's how internet works. And that's how Google goes and get the thing. But what you say is that this is what I want people to know from me because I'm sovereign. Yeah. And then it goes in a certain place. And let's say I'm an advertiser in Sharjah or in Abidjan, for instance, right? And I'm looking for people who like, who know a bit about technology because I want to sell this new laptop or iPad, for instance, or this new publication. Then that AI will connect me to these people and in my city, and then we can start transacting. And especially in a context, what COVID-19 is telling us today is that the world is not going to be the same. Traveling is not going to be the same. We're going most probably to go back local.
Yeah,
is
exactly.
At stake. So, and then it's calling for more localized solutions, community-based, that are very inspired again from the Ubuntu philosophy, where how do we work together here to sort out our problems, right? Think of this. Senegal came with ventilators 16 times cheaper than GE. I'm not going to put names of companies, so you'll edit that part. But they came also with a detector, right? South Africa is doing the same. Ghana is doing the same. Why? Because they had to find a solution on the spot locally to solve it. Also because it was too expensive to get it from abroad, right? And that's where also you put human intelligence together to come with solutions using data that they can tap into. Then they can come with also very advanced solutions. Because at the end of the day, as much as people are scared of AI, it's driven by two things.
Okay, let me ask one more question from our viewers. Yeah, it's okay. Now they asking, what's the average salary in Africa? Now I clearly understand that you are in Arab Emirates in Sharjah, but maybe you know about that. What's the average salary in Africa now?
I'm just here temporarily. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Sorry, what's the question?
The question is, what is the average salary in Africa now?
It depends. It depends on regions, but you can go.
Madagascar, for example, you are talking about Madagascar.
Madagascar is one of the lowest, so it should be something around 1,000, 1,300.
It's not so less, because in they're talking from Israel.
The average in Africa would be 3,000 roughly.
Wow.
Yeah, between 2,000 and 3,000. So yeah. And that's the beauty. Let me take this question further.
Okay.
Yeah. So you're asking me, after I explained that there are 8 forms of capital, you're asking me the wealth of a nation based on one form. Now, if I add, yeah, the additional 7 forms of capital, which is cultural, intellectual, etc., then the wealth is completely redefined here. And that's what's going to happen. I'll tell you why. Because if you reached on a deadlock, and let's take a basic thing that we all went through, COVID-19, yeah? So COVID-19, what it taught us is that, okay, you can't go to the movies, you can't go to the cinema, you can't, go to the restaurant, and you're stuck at home and you go digital.
The cinema is okay. We can see all the movies around, really. Now
it's you'll see, no, but yeah, the restaurant, you order and all that, yes. Right? But you're at home. What has happened to most people during this phase is that they've rediscovered some basic thing that that shows them that there is something else to life that's money.
Yeah.
And it's only the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Let's take another basic example. Let's take the case of the entrepreneur. Yeah. He starts his business. He fails. Now, yes, on a financial term, he's failed because he didn't generate money. But what has he gained? He's gained experience, which is highly valuable. He's gained a social network of new people that he's met. So he's building other forms of capital that will help him on his next trial. And that's why when you ask me, what's the GDP? I'm telling you, does it really matter today? And it will matter less. And now if you're asking me, what's the GDP based on Paper currency, I'll say no, not much. But guess what? Why do people are so attracted to go to um, Costa Rica, Tibet, some places in India? Many of them are poor, but they're going to get another form of capital, spiritual capital. Why there's so much attraction today to Africa? Why Japan, who is one of the wealthiest nations in the world, has the biggest rate of suicide?
Yeah.
Maybe not measuring wealth the right way. That's why I was insisting on those forms of capital. And tomorrow, I'll tell you what, even if they have $1 or $2 GDP per day, if data becomes that critical, then we won't be talking about $1,300. We'll be talking about which country has the largest number of potential customers, even if they don't have purchasing power, they have data. Just take health, for instance. Did you know that 90% of the human genetic pool is actually in Africa? The rest of the planet has 10%. If you want to do quality health to heal those 10% that have the money, you're going to need the data of the 90%. Now, if they're smart.
Okay, yeah, Mamadou, we have just 1 minute left. I want to say a lot of thanks to you personally, because it's very interesting topic. We are here just a little more than 1 hour. I really love your very positive and affirmative thoughts. It's very close to me personally as well. I think our audience like and love this conversation, this discussion with you personally. I think, yes, we can make maybe on another time, on another event. And now
there's a few things I wanted to say though.
Okay,
So
I see.
we'll move from 1 to 5 minutes, because
yeah, we have
derailed me, but they were beautiful. So,
Uh-huh.
but go ahead with your question. So I love it.
The question is going to be about Africa salary. You already answered on it. It's no need to come back to it. Just go ahead on your thoughts.
Yeah, so here comes the question also on I mentioned the data capital. Now, where it becomes interesting is that if indeed AI and blockchain and you need data, then there's a very important capital, which is the human capital, right? And I want to point something here. You remember, have you heard of Malthus? Malthus?
No, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Malthus was this economist in the 19th century. So what he was saying is, look, the world is going to a huge catastrophe because the food supply is growing arithmetically and the population is growing exponentially. And therefore, people will die and starve. What was very interesting about it is that he underestimated a very important thing, which was technology.
Automation has changed it.
Automation and technology. And that's the whole point. And we are with AI and blockchain today, the amount of wealth you can create by optimizing resources could be extremely powerful, right? And therefore, if human capital becomes a capital, and you have the technology to nurture this population, right? And because the resources also, the way they're spread, we're no longer into this Ricardo model of the division of labor, yeah? So where it becomes very interesting is wealth is changing, right? And if you look at what currencies are we talking about? For social capital, your currency is connections. For material capital, your currency is materials and the goods. Financial capital is money, yeah? Right? So natural capital is carbon, gold, water, like we mentioned. Intellectual capital is ideas and knowledge. Guess what? Intellectual capital, which is what we talk about, this knowledge-based society, is just based on one thing, is based on the human brain. So if the human brain has access on a level playing field, equal access to opportunity, which is the mission of Ubuntu tribe, then it's a capital that is equally spread around the world. Experiential capital is your action, right? And what you've gone through. So if you take the case, for instance, of let's say Vietnam, for instance, right? So the war also has led them in a very specific mindset, right? That also helped them to be very grouped and mobilized. That's why they're one of the best countries who've dealt with COVID-19, because the national mobilization has been strong and it remains in history. If you take the case of the UAE, right, there is this, and which is something I also discovered here, is that because of the founding fathers and the hard work, so the culture was a sort of miracle. You take the case of Dubai, right? If you take, an experiential capital is important. Now, what has made the strength, and why is also, why do you have so many issues with COVID-19 and this global collapse? Is because, and why Africa is reacting differently, is that we have been used to deal with a lot of catastrophes, right? Between Ebola and the history of colonization, etc. So there's a natural resilience, right? That can make people deal better. So in the world that we're heading today of so many uncertainties, resilience become a currency. Now, where this is all leading, you were talking about people trusting AI. Yes, there's a risk. And this risk, honestly, is very interesting in the sense that, what if you have today a machine that can do art, sell it, tokenize, basically get the funds, and to use the funds to get more money or more digital currency to buy more computing power and do more art, etc. Yes, that could be to lead to something, again, very centralized. Hence the necessity of a decentralized AI, a distributed AI. But the beauty also comes from another thing. You were asking me about the GDP. This is all nice, but technology also allows today, and Bantu, for instance, blockchain, they're working on and other people, where your phone gets some computing power and contributes to the mining of the tokens. What does that mean? It means that if you have 1.3 billion people today, 2 billion people tomorrow with a mobile phone, computing power becomes a whole different ball game, even if you don't have so much purchasing power. But with your phone, that's why technology changes the game. Now, the question is, if people are behind AI, how do we make sure that you can trust the algorithm, right? Here's another thing today that was very interesting. People were complaining about TikTok and data and so on. But I don't think the issue is so much about spying. I think the issue is you need data. For instance, I struggled with Snapchat because it couldn't really apply those things on my face. Guess what? Because the data pool did not many have enough people of my skin color or my face type. So to perfect their tool, they're going to need more people that are more different. What does that mean? It means that the next market is again a numbers game and might become the emerging market if you really have planetary ambitions for your business. Yeah, so those are very important things. Now, when we talk about all that, I was asked the other day, but what's the doomsday scenario with AI that we can't control and it's going to replace people, etc. I remember with my parents, I was always asked to do the dishes, and really I didn't like it. And when we got a dishwasher, it changed my life. So, and I think we shouldn't be scared of it. And we should remember one thing: you need to trust what blockchain has taught us is that the community can self-regulate itself, right? And it's easier to trust a community where there's peer pressure than one entity that can be fallible, or one man or one entity. Now, what does that mean? It means that if we really want to have safe AI, we need to have it distributed. If we really want to avoid the doomsday scenario, that would be a combination of Terminator and the Matrix, but where it's not your energy that is going to be mined, it's going to be your data, right? Then it means that you also need to go more open source, right? And have more transparency. And that's what also blockchain could allow in many ways. So, I think hence it mitigate the gate, and which means that if the developers are building those apps and those algorithms, it comes with a question of ethics, and which leads again back to this very important capital, which is the human capital. And there is this Chinese proverb that says, if you want 1 year of prosperity, grow grain. If you want 10 years of prosperity, grow people. And if you want if you want 10 years of prosperity, grow a tree. If you want 100 years of prosperity, grow people. It means that we're going to have to invest much more in values, in making sure that we don't live in a society where people are stuck in fear. Because when you're scared, you want to be in control. And when you want to be in control, then you're going to build a program or software that will keep you in control. Indeed, one of the challenges today is that most of the funds for AI goes to military, surveillance, or advertising. Now, you have some good guys in this game, right? So, I know, for instance, you have the case of Elon Musk, who has, provided a lot of funding to OpenAI or Stephen Tron with Udacity, trying to get people to understand those things.
He creating narrow link. He creating direct narrow link to our mind.
Exactly. So what is critical here is it's everybody's responsibility, right? And now if you diffuse it and you decentralize and distribute it, then people understand that they recover the intrinsic power, first of all. But they know, and that's where the Ubuntu philosophy comes again. We are all interdependent. And I was referring to fear earlier, right? So point is, if there is a better trust, and remember, blockchain and AI are both based on trust, then we need to get people to trust each other more. And when I was mentioning the Ubuntu Love Challenge, it wasn't by chance, yeah? Is that we need to build those fundamentals where there's greater collaboration, greater trust, and that's what open source, for instance, allows. But where whichever environment you evolve with is away from fear, because whatever you're going to be developing or doing will be based on self-preservation and survival instinct. Everything is interconnected. And when we mentioned earlier, which is we skipped spiritual capital, it's critical. What is blockchain ultimately? Is the spiritual mathematical interpretation of a societal balance. Now, if you think of AI, yeah, so when you're on your phone or you talk to friends and you might talk about a specific topic, and then when you go and search or you want to go to any platform, then suddenly the topics you've been talking about the day before that day are appearing. That's spirituality.
It's not spirituality. Yes, it just happens. Yeah, it just happens already.
I know. Yeah. So, and this is very important to understand the holistic approach that needs to happen in the world we live in. We're no longer going to be able to survive in a principle of separation. We are one. And this will create the balance we need for this new economic order of shared abundance and powered for a new world, for a conscious, caring, and prosperous world.
Okay, guys, I really love this thoughtful session with you, Mamadou. Very interesting to have a conversation with you, to be in discussion with you as well. I'm sure that all our viewers also like. I think we have a chance to maybe talk a little bit more with you personally on another way. And I can't wait when it happens. And now I want to say goodbye and say a lot of thanks to you personally. Thanks a lot for your very interesting.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yes. It's been great to have a conversation. Thank you.
Yeah. See you later. Guys, we have to go offline and see you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.